Until the mid-20th century, some scholars found themselves asking, was Pontius Pilate ever truly a man of flesh and blood, or merely a theological construct, an indispensable villain for a sacred narrative? This profound question lingered in the academic shadows, fueling skepticism about one of the Gospel's most pivotal figures. Imagine a central character in one of the most widely read stories in human history, his very existence resting solely on ancient manuscripts, vulnerable to every critical challenge. For nearly 2 millennia, the historical Pilate remained largely a specter, a name on a page. But what if the ground beneath our feet held a secret, waiting to upend centuries of debate about his reality, and in doing so, reveal far more than mere existence? So, did this historical ghost truly walk the earth, or was he merely a theological construct, as some scholarship once suggested? This investigation promises to confront centuries of textual speculation with hard archaeological evidence. We will delve into the 1961 discovery of the Pilate Stone, examining precisely what it confirms about his existence and his role as Prefect of Judea. But crucially, we will also explore what this singular artifact doesn't confirm, paradoxically raising deeper, more complex questions about the Gospel's portrayal of his character and actions. First, however, let's establish the widely accepted traditional narrative of Pontius Pilate. Traditionally, within Christian narratives, Pontius Pilate is widely understood as the Roman prefect of Judea, serving under Emperor Tiberius. His primary role in the New Testament is as the magistrate who presided over the trial of Jesus. The Gospels paint a complex portrait, a figure initially reluctant to condemn Jesus, attempting to find alternatives, and even famously washing his hands to symbolize his perceived innocence in the decision, as recounted in Matthew 27:24. For centuries, this portrayal, reinforced by extensive textual evidence from the Gospels, formed the bedrock of his perceived historical existence. His presence in these foundational texts was, for many, sufficient corroboration. However, to truly appreciate the implications of later discoveries, we must first immerse ourselves in the tumultuous world of first-century Roman Judea. This was a volatile province under Rome's iron fist, constantly simmering with religious and political tensions. From 26 to 36 CE, Pontius Pilate served as prefect, tasked with maintaining order and collecting taxes for Emperor Tiberius, a role that frequently put him at odds with the local populace. Contemporaries like the Jewish historian Josephus and philosopher Philo of Alexandria offer a starkly different portrait of Pilate than the Gospels. Far from a reluctant judge, they describe a harsh, often brutal ruler known for provoking his Jewish subjects. Josephus details his insensitivity to Jewish customs, while Philo condemns his venality and penchant for executions. This reputation for cruelty and political insensitivity created a profound textual contradiction that fueled scholarly debate for centuries. However, beneath the shifting sands of Caesarea Maritima, a tangible piece of evidence lay waiting, poised to settle one question, and in doing so, ignite a dozen more. In 1961, an Italian archaeological team led by Dr. Antonio Frova was excavating the ancient theater there. Amidst the sun-baked stones and forgotten debris, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, a fragmented limestone block. Unassuming at first glance, its surface was scarred by time and erosion. But as the archaeological team meticulously brushed away centuries of accumulated dust, a series of Latin letters began to materialize, carved with Roman precision. These weren't just random symbols, they were fragments of an official inscription, a tangible utterance from antiquity. The air on site crackled with a palpable sense of discovery. This was no ordinary find. It was a direct, undeniable link to a figure whose very historical reality had been questioned for millennia. The fragmented inscription, painstakingly reconstructed, revealed a truth. It once read, Dis Augustis, Tiberium, Pontius Pilatus, Praefectus Judeae, dedit. The crucial lines, stripped of their missing context, clearly articulated Pontius Pilate and, more specifically, his authoritative title, Prefect of Judea. This wasn't a vague reference or an ambiguous symbol. It was a direct, official attestation from the Roman administration itself. For the first time, an archaeological artifact, physically unearthed from the soil of ancient Judea, corroborated the existence of a man previously known almost exclusively through literary sources. It confirmed not only that a Pontius Pilate served in Judea, but that he held the precise office of prefect during the early 1st century CE, aligning perfectly with the gospel narratives. This singular artifact, therefore, immediately and profoundly reshaped the academic conversation. But what precisely did this undeniable textual evidence signify for centuries of scholarship? The Pilate Stone, once deciphered, revolutionized a significant corner of biblical scholarship. As acknowledged by prominent epigraphists and historians like Dr. Josephus and the late Professor E.P. Sanders, this discovery provided a definitive archaeological anchor for Pontius Pilate. It effectively silenced the skeptical voices who, prior to 1961, questioned whether he was merely a theological construct, existing solely within the Gospels. This inscription firmly established his historical existence and confirmed his precise administrative title, Prefect of Judea. It was a tangible verification of his official capacity and presence in Judea during the exact time frame depicted in the biblical narratives. This single artifact, therefore, provided crucial archaeological corroboration for a key biblical figure, clarifying with stark certainty that the man Pontius Pilate was indeed a historical person. The Pilate Stone, while undeniable evidence of his historical footprint, offers a potent paradox. If this inscription definitively confirms Pilate's presence as prefect of Judea, then why does it remain stubbornly silent on the very events that define his biblical legacy, the trial and condemnation of Jesus? This singular piece of archaeological evidence, rather than simplifying the narrative, paradoxically deepens the mystery surrounding the Gospel's portrayal of his character. It corroborates the man, but offers no textual evidence to support the reluctant judge depicted in the New Testament. This creates what we might call the Pilate paradox, irrefutable historical existence, yet an enduring ambiguity regarding his most famous actions. The stone confirms a name and a title, but it leaves us questioning the narrative itself. And this is where the plot truly thickens. The true historical landscape of Pontius Pilate, scholarship suggests, is far more complex, revealing a profound contradiction when we consult other textual evidence from his own era. Beyond the terse confirmation of the Pilate Stone, we find a much darker portrait of the prefect painted by contemporary historians. Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews and the Jewish War, chronicles a ruthless administrator. He recounts Pilate's provocative act of bringing Roman military standards adorned with imperial images into Jerusalem, desecrating the holy city and igniting furious protests. Not only this, but Josephus also details Pilate's brutal appropriation of temple funds to construct an aqueduct, a move met with violent Jewish opposition and a subsequent massacre. Philo of Alexandria, another Jewish philosopher, corroborates this image in On the Embassy to Gaius, depicting Pilate as a man of inflexible, cruel, and unmerciful temper, who indulged in vexations, insults, continuous massacres, and endless and intolerable cruelties. These accounts consistently describe a ruler prone to excessive force and deeply insensitive to Jewish religious sensibilities. Such a figure seems profoundly at odds with the hesitant judge who famously washed his hands. This cumulative textual evidence from non-biblical sources presents a stark pattern of oppression and bloodshed. So why would the gospel narratives diverge so dramatically from these widely attested historical descriptions? Scholarship suggests this discrepancy stems from a calculated narrative strategy by early Christian writers. Following the devastating Jewish revolts against Rome, particularly after 70 CE and the destruction of the temple, early Christianity found itself in a precarious position. To distinguish themselves from the rebellious Jewish population and make their new faith more acceptable to Roman authorities, a subtle but profound textual redaction began to take shape. This process involved what some scholars term the villain denial paradox in the Gospels. Instead of portraying Pilate as the harsh, brutal prefect documented by Josephus and Philo, the Gospel narratives subtly exculpate him. By shifting the primary blame for Jesus' condemnation onto Jewish leaders, early Christian authors could present their movement as politically harmless, even loyal to Rome. This strategic reshaping of Pilate's role was not about historical accuracy, but about the survival and expansion of a nascent religion within a hostile empire. However, this interpretation, while compelling, is not without its own challenges and alternative perspectives. Indeed, intellectual honesty demands we consider these. Scholarship suggests Pilate's character was nuanced. Roman prefects could adapt their actions. His reported brutality in other contexts doesn't automatically negate a moment of hesitation concerning Jesus. Furthermore, Josephus and Philo, while invaluable, were not unbiased historians, often portraying Roman authorities negatively due to their own agendas. The Gospels, too, had distinct theological aims, not purely historical reporting. This complex interplay of sources means no single account offers the complete, unvarnished truth. Instead, it reveals the profoundly political process that influenced the selection and shaping of foundational narratives, including the very making of the biblical canon. This wasn't merely a debate over historical nuance, it was a battle for the very soul and survival of a burgeoning religious movement. The political landscape of the Roman Empire, particularly in the centuries following Jesus' death, exerted immense pressure on early Christian communities. To gain acceptance and avoid persecution, narratives that downplayed conflict with Roman authority became strategically vital. This is where the Gospel Pilate, the hesitant, hand-washing prefect, came to anchor itself in the emerging Christian consciousness, standing in stark contrast to the historical Pilate documented by Josephus and Philo. The shaping and selection of the biblical canon, therefore, was not a detached, solely spiritual act. It was a profoundly human process, influenced by political exigencies and the very real need for the nascent church to forge an identity palatable to the dominant power structure. These choices, made by influential figures within the early church, determined which stories would endure and which versions of history would define faith for millennia. This complex interplay of archaeological fact, conflicting historical accounts, and political motivations compels us to synthesize these threads. Thus, we arrive at a synthesis. The Pilate Stone confirms Pontius Pilate's historical existence and his title as Prefect of Judea. Yet this archaeological certainty paradoxically deepens the mystery of his character. We've seen the brutal ruler of Josephus and Philo sharply contrasted with the Gospel's reluctant judge, a narrative strategically shaped, scholarship suggests, for Roman acceptance. This interplay between archaeological fact, conflicting accounts, and the political motivations behind biblical redaction underscores a vital lesson. Historical truth is rarely monolithic. Textual evidence, far from a transparent window, is often a constructed lens, shaped by its context and purpose. This ongoing dialogue reveals not just what happened, but why certain narratives persisted. But if one such discovery can so profoundly reshape our understanding, what other foundational narratives might be awaiting similar reevaluation? Consider the profound implication. If a single fragmented stone could so decisively confirm the existence of Pontius Pilate, yet simultaneously complicate our understanding of his historical actions as depicted in the Gospels, what does this tell us about the broader landscape of ancient history? What if archaeological confirmations or even contradictions surface for other pivotal biblical figures or events? The very fabric of established narratives, scholarship suggests, could prove far more fluid, far more open to reinterpretation than we often presume. It forces us to ask, how many other assumptions, built solely on textual tradition, might be awaiting their own archaeological reckoning? As we grapple with these expansive what-if scenarios, it's crucial to consolidate the specific findings from our journey with the Pilate Stone itself. So, what has our investigation ultimately revealed? The Pilate Stone, a single fragmented inscription, undeniably confirmed the historical existence of Pontius Pilate and his precise office as Prefect of Judea, providing a concrete archaeological anchor for a figure once questioned as purely biblical. However, this archaeological triumph paradoxically illuminated a profound textual contradiction. The Pilate of the Gospels, depicted as a hesitant judge, stands in stark contrast to the ruthless administrator chronicled by Josephus and Philo. Scholarship suggests this divergence was a strategic redaction, making early Christianity palatable to Roman authorities. This journey underscores that historical truth is rarely singular, demanding critical engagement with all available evidence, archaeological and textual. Yet, even with these insights, the full truth of Pilate's motivations remains elusive, inviting us to ponder. The Pilate Stone, therefore, provides a tangible anchor, yet it doesn't resolve the profound questions surrounding the man himself. We're still left with the Pilate paradox, a historical figure whose defining moment in popular culture remains shrouded in narrative complexity and contradictory accounts. Was he truly a reluctant judge, or the brutal prefect described by his contemporaries? The evidence, scholarship suggests, forces us to hold both possibilities in tension, acknowledging that the motivations of historical figures are rarely transparent. This ongoing investigation into the hidden meanings behind sacred texts is a continuous journey. We are left not with definitive answers, but with a profound invitation to continue asking, what are your interpretations of the Pilate paradox? This paradox, where historical confirmation meets narrative ambiguity, is a testament to the complex layers of biblical history. What are your interpretations of how archaeological discoveries like the Pilate Stone reshape our understanding of foundational narratives? Do these new insights deepen your skepticism, or do they offer a richer, more nuanced appreciation of these ancient texts? Share your thoughts and engage in the critical discussion below. If you're drawn to unraveling such intricate mysteries where history and textual evidence intertwine, consider subscribing. And for another journey into the blurred lines between myth and historical evidence, as we conclude this intricate analysis, the questions raised by the Pilate Stone resonate far beyond a single Roman prefect. Our understanding of ancient figures is perpetually refined by new discoveries, constantly challenging established narratives. This channel, Biblical Mysteries, thrives on exploring such profound discrepancies. If you are compelled by the ongoing pursuit of historical clarity amidst the layers of textual tradition, consider how similar challenges face us when examining figures like King David. Separating myth from monarch, legend from verifiable history, this work of uncovering hidden meanings is truly never finished. After dissecting the Pilate paradox and its historical tensions, how do you reconcile the conflicting portrayals of this pivotal figure? Tell me in the comments. I read and reply to every single one. These historical tensions connect to even deeper textual inconsistencies. Next, we expose the profound conflicts between John and the Synoptic Gospels. Subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss what comes next. Like if you understood, and share this with someone who needs to see it.